Hey everyone, Pugs here with 2 new reviews for y'all. Today we're covering SB-129 and Karate Choppers. And oh boy, got another famous one, or I guess 2 depending on your perspective, on my hands. I hope that doesn't mean I'll be getting any pitchforks today. I'm sure my opinions on these episodes won't be unpopular, so I guess that's a taste for what's to come, and I guess that means I won't be getting pitchforks. Like usual, just want to say thanks to everyone who's been watching, liking, commenting. You guys are awesome, and that's really all I have to say on that, so thank you. And yeah, just without further ado, let's just get right into these episodes. Starting us off today, we've got SB-129, one of the more famous episodes of this show. I'm certain that it has achieved classic status, and for good reason. Like, SB-129 is like nostalgia personified. Now, why I get so nostalgic whenever I rewatch this episode, I'm not quite sure, but I have a few ideas. So, like, for one thing, I've always liked this episode, so I'm sure I watched it a lot as a kid as well, so it's kind of easy to make that childhood association. And then another reason might be that, like, oh boy, like, this episode was used in a lot of, like, YouTube poops, which I watched often when I was a kid, and yeah, I said it, I was a YouTube poop kid, and you know what, I stand by that. Yeah, so that's probably why this episode's pretty nostalgic for me. But moving on, so we can discuss the actual content of this episode, I think that, like, SB-129 has this, like, weird, nearly eerie, like, atmospheric and almost, like, liminal quality to it. And, like, I don't just mean, like, the part where Squidward's in the void. I mean, like, that's part of it, but, like, I don't just mean that. Like, when Squidward goes to the Krusty Krab to get some peace and quiet from SpongeBob and Patrick, like, the empty restaurant also has this same kind of, like, liminal, eerie feel to it. It just has, like, this feeling of being, like, just off. Like, just a little to the left of what's normal. I don't really know how to, like, verbalize it, so hopefully you all understand what I mean. It could just be because of something so simple that, like, you know, we don't usually see the Krusty Krab closed like this, but I'm not sure. The vibes are just unsettling in this episode, but in a good way, and I dig it. And I'm sure this episode wasn't meant to carry this weird liminal quality, or maybe it was because of the whole Squidward in the void scene, not sure. But either way, it does feel like that to me, and I like it. I think it adds something to this episode. It makes it unique. So pushing these liminal feelings aside, like, SB-129 is also just, like, a hilarious episode. Like, even with, like, the, you know, slow charm of season 1 that I've, like, touched on before. Like, the very beginning of this episode is pretty funny, like, when Squidward's clarinet gets lodged in his throat. And just like in jellyfishing, I thought it was cute that, like, SpongeBob and Patrick were, like, really excited to go jellyfishing with Squidward. Like, that was just, like, really cute. I love their enthusiasm. And, like, the part where Squidward keeps, like, slamming the door in SpongeBob and Patrick's face is just, like, a good gag. When they, like, disappear and show up behind him, I thought that was good. And then, like, when Squidward ends up locking himself in the freezer, and he's just like, I'll get out of here in no time. And then we cut to, like, 2,000 years later. I, like, start laughing immediately whenever that happens, but, like, in a well shit kind of way. Like, I have many questions about how nobody opened the freezer in 2,000 years, but, you know, whatever. And speaking of 2,000 years later, everything about the scene taking place in the future, like, that just gets me rolling, like, every time. Like, you know, Spongetron, Patron, was that what he's called? I can't remember. You know, all of that, like, everything being made of chrome is hilarious. It reminds me of, like, the trend now to make everything sleek and minimalist for no reason. And I don't mean just, like, interior decorating, but also just, like, you know, how, like, brands keep, like, minimizing all of their stuff. I don't know. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And then, like, of course, there's, like, the whole, like, future gag. Like, that's just iconic. It's too funny. Like, there's not much I can say. There's a reason why people love that gag so much. I'd say, like, the quote-unquote weakest part of this episode is probably the scene taking place in the past, but it's not really a bad scene. I mean, it builds tension pretty well in those beginning seconds, like, where Squidward's hearing all the rustling and, like, all the, like, figures in the shadows, you know. I thought that was pretty good. And then, like, from there, we get, like, a mix of tension undercut with some humor, all the way until, like, primitive SpongeBob and Patrick start trying to attack Squidward for his bad clarinet playing, which that reminds me a lot of the camping episode. I guess, like, theoretically, primitive SpongeBob and Patrick can get annoying for the same reason that people dislike Ugg, but like that's not really how I feel. And you can tell that that's not how I feel because I like both Ugg and primitive SpongeBob and Patrick. So, but I'm thinking that might be the reason why people might dislike that part if they do. But yeah. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the other super iconic part of this episode, which is like the Squidward in the Void scene. There's a popular YouTube video on here, I think, where someone analyzes the scene. For some reason, I just like remember that being a thumbnail, so I'm sure that exists. So that's how like you know it's iconic. And honestly, it's a special kind of unnerving that I would never expect to be in a SpongeBob SquarePants episode. But it doesn't actually like distress me all that much, probably because it is a funny scene, so it kind of undercuts some of those distressing feelings. And like the sound design in this scene is really good. Like you can hear like Squidward's footsteps and stuff. Also, I'm sad about this, but like there was this Bikini Bottom like in Minecraft map like years ago. Like I'm like talking about like 2015, 2016 at the latest. That included this void as like a little Easter egg. If I remember correctly, there was like a button by like Squidward's bed or whatever that you could press and it would take you to the void for a bit. And you'd have like potion of blindness on you. I don't know. I just remember that. That was a nice little map. I always thought that was really cool. And I guess like if I can find the map, which I think I know what it is. If I can find it, then I'll just link it. So, you know, any Minecraft players, there you go. Wow, a YouTube poop and a Minecraft kid. Y'all are just getting all kinds of fun facts about my childhood today. Anyway, back to the episode. The ending of SB-129 is just like really wholesome, and it's like the first of many times we see Squidward show some real fondness for the craziness that is his life being neighbors with SpongeBob and Patrick. Like the sheer relief in his voice when he sees that he's back in Bikini Bottom is like really heartwarming. And of course, I love that the episode has to get like one last stinger in there, or I guess multiple stingers. Like with SpongeBob and Patrick rightfully saying that Squidward is the creator of jellyfishing and therefore of his own torment, and Squidward being like, I'm going back. Because, like, talk all you want, Squidward, we know you aren't going back. So I guess just to sum it all up, like, SB-129 is just a really fun episode. Like, it's slow as per the style of season 1, but that works well here. And these 11 minutes are also just very atmospheric, which is always a plus for me. And we even get a bit of wholesomeness at the end, which just fuels the soul. All of this is to say that SB-129 like clearly belongs in my amazing tier, and it's coming in with a score of 9 out of 10. Coming up next, we've got Karate Choppers, a fun little episode that is almost definitely overshadowed by its sister episode, which is a shame because this is a great episode too. And Karate Choppers is a fun little episode that further establishes the friendship and dynamic between SpongeBob and Sandy. I quite enjoy the friendly rivalry that SpongeBob and Sandy have throughout the series. I think it's very fun, and you know, this is high praise coming from me because I'm a Dragon Ball fan, so I'm basically an expert in animated rivalries. And for legal reasons, this is a joke. The beginning of this episode is real fun. Like, SpongeBob and Sandy's back and forth is entertaining to watch, and it's fun to see them compete like this in different environments. The volcano sauce part is equal parts random, weird, and hilarious, which is perfectly for a classically SpongeBob SquarePants joke. And then once we move on to the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob's paranoia is just so good. Like, the way he keeps attacking anything and everything is increasingly hilarious. Not to mention, it's a source of a my leg gag, so that's fun. And, like, this little guy is just fixated on the possibility of Sandy sneaking up on him. And it's both funny and kind of cute, especially when he's like, in my own dojo, with a dazed voice and look in his eyes. I thought that was really funny. And I love the little bit of wordplay we get with Mr. Krabs rhyming a bunch of stuff to match SpongeBob's weirdly pronounced karate. I thought that was like a really nice touch. And the funniest part of SpongeBob's paranoid doings in the Krusty Krab has to be when he ends up attacking Mr. Krabs in the bathroom, which leads Mr. Krabs to threaten him with firing if he, don't cut it out. Speaking of Mr. K, Karate Choppers is like the first episode where Mr. Krabs can be described as a real jerkwad. Like, Help Wanted, I suppose, could count, but he didn't really know SpongeBob yet, so I don't really count it. Now, like, I say can be described here because he's not really that bad here. He just kind of ends up firing SpongeBob without listening to him, but that lasts all of like 20 seconds, since he ends up hearing out Sandy when she pleads with him. And speaking of that scene, it's hard not to, feel bad for our favorite little yellow sponge when he gets fired, but man, oh man, is his reaction both, emotional and hilarious. And, I guess let me just, talk about things in general real quick, because, SpongeBob SquarePants, it's a show that understands that it is a comedy. Above all, it is a comedy. It thrives on making the audience feel a breadth of emotions from sadness to anger to happiness, but it rarely ever dwells on these feelings, instead focusing on making us laugh as a way of kind of disrupting any negative feelings that we're having. Even an episode like Have You Seen This Snail? It does this during Gary's song, when, I can't remember exactly what causes the couple to fight, but during the song, this couple fights and it's funny. So, yeah. Even during the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, when SpongeBob and Patrick literally die, that sadness is undercut by the incredibly expressive reactions of the pirates in the theater. It's really funny. And this episode is no exception to this masterful type of writing, and so SpongeBob's exaggerated reaction to being fired is mostly played for laughs, even if seeing him fired is upsetting. Moving on, I guess, after Mr. Krabs gives SpongeBob another chance, the following segment of SpongeBob and Sandy trying not to do karate like they're going through withdrawals is brilliant and a great use of humor that appeals to both children and adults. Children get that SpongeBob and Sandy like to do karate and are having a hard time staying away from it, but teenagers and up get the whole addiction vibe from that scene as well. That's another thing this show does well, this kind of layered humor, but I won't dwell on that here because we'll be here all day. I love the build-up to Sandy and SpongeBob finally being just unable to take it anymore and just starting to do karate again. The tension is thick as SpongeBob starts making their sandwiches, and then seeing them just start to go crazy with it is so entertaining. And then when Mr. Krabs suddenly shows up at the park, that's a great moment too. I love the random noise that he makes. Clancy Brown really could have just done in a hem or something, but nah, he did whatever that noise was, and it made it so much better. I'm not actually sure if this was an ad lib or anything, but I'll credit him at least for the delivery, so I'm not really sure if that was in the script. So if it was in the script, then I'm going to credit the people who said that in the script. Anyway, the ending of this episode is also very fun. I love that SpongeBob and Sandy get to use their hobby in a way that helps everyone, though why do I get the feeling that Sandy doesn't end up getting paid, knowing Mr. Krabs, that is? I mean, she was wearing a Krusty Krab hat, so maybe she was. Not sure. I feel this is the only episode I've seen her in a Krusty Krab hat. It might have happened in the brand new episodes, because to be honest, I'm not caught up on season 13. Yeah, I know. Horrendous, I know. But I don't remember this happening in any other episode. Interesting. Anyway, Squidward's I hate all of you, that was a good note to end the episode on too, along with this, wholesomeness and everyone's happy times. All in all, Karate Choppers is just a very solid episode with some good examples of what makes this show great. It's funny, entertaining, and even a little bit emotional, which means it hits so many of the right marks for me. And that's why this episode definitely deserves to go in my amazing tier, coming in with a score of 9 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this review with some closing thoughts of mine. I think SB-129 and Karate Choppers are just a really good pair to discuss, because together, these episodes touch on a variety of aspects that make this show special. SB-129 hits on the weird and eerie side of SpongeBob SquarePants, as well as the very creative kinds of plots we've come to expect from this show. Not to mention it features one of the best, most tried and true dynamics in the show, SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward. And as for Karate Choppers, this episode is much more of a showcase of the show's varied types of humor, from slapstick to witty, and it lets us spend time with a different set of characters. Two very different episodes, yet I love them both the same. I like comparing episodes that I end up giving the exact same rating, because you can see how many different formulas can lead to the same result, if you catch my drift. And I don't know, it's just nice to see, how a bunch of different factors can lead to me liking the episode the same, even if none of those factors are even the same thing. But I just think it's interesting. Other than that, there really isn't that much to say about these two episodes. I enjoy them, and I enjoyed reviewing them. And yeah, I guess that's all for this review, so I will see you guys later.